Thanks, Sophie. Hello, welcome to BBC Channel Islands. I'm Nora Fakeem. Jersey's government is due to begin talks with the owner of a prime beachside site at Guernsey after politicians signalled their support for it to be bought for public use. The seaside cafe and its car park are on the market for £5 million after planning permission was granted for a luxury private home and restaurant there. But there's uncertainty over how easy it will be for ministers to strike a deal which represents value for money. Here's our political reporter, Freddie Miller.
A jewel in Jersey's crown, a place of community focus for centuries. While Guernsey Bay still draws crowds, some now avoid its far end, where the former cafe is boarded up, overgrown and closed to the public. But with state support for a sale now secured, negotiations between its owner and the government are on the menu.
I think there's so much potential for this site. It's one of our really loved coastal bays. People across the island get to enjoy it, and that's something that we want to ensure can continue into the future. There's some really exciting conversations that have been happening over the past few months about what the site could be used for.
And while no agreements have yet been signed, involved in those conversations has been the Baudet Foundation, a charity which runs Les Ormes Leisure Centre. It says it can't offer money to buy the site, but it could run it at no cost to the taxpayer by investing up to £200,000 every year.
People could come down, do their activities on the beach, be it coast steering, canoeing, paddling, but somewhere there was a base where maybe a group of school children with their school teacher could leave their stuff, have a cafe snack. We would certainly want, in terms of the Baudet Foundation, run some children's programmes here for the less advantaged children. But also I think actually there's an elderly element as well. I think very much a community centre on the beach.
Plenty of other opinions also exist about how this site could be cleaned up.
They should have parking and some sort of outdoor education centre for the youngsters of the island.
From a tourist perspective, I think it's good to have another cafe.
It's always been part of the community of the beach. It was always a wonderful shop and a cafe, enjoyed by so many.
The gift shop that was there was fantastic in there.
It was great. Anything you needed was in there, and they had a lovely ice cream parlour.
But potential barriers raised by politicians during the debate suggest this topic might not be as straightforward as it appears. Some felt the millions it would cost could be better spent on other priorities. Others asked, where is this money going to come from? But perhaps most significantly, the politician responsible for signing off on any potential purchase expressed doubts about the government's ability to secure this site without paying over the odds for it.
I think we're put in an impossible situation because we'll be going in to talk to an individual who's extremely commercially minded, no intention of becoming a philanthropist. We've told him that we're desperate to buy his property, and then once we go to the negotiating table, we've got to tell him that we've got to buy it at a price that represents value for money for us. I describe this as a complete dog's breakfast. It should never have come to the Assembly.
With planning permission for these designs still in place, it remains possible someone else buys this land and develops it as a home. But no matter what the future holds for this site, many believe a decision can no longer remain on ice. Freddie Miller, BBC Channel Islands News, Jersey.
Attempts are underway to reverse a decision to list the Cattell Hospital. Guernsey's former mental health facility was protected by politicians last week after a recommendation by experts, meaning plans to demolish it and build more than 100 homes are now unlikely. But Policy and Resources has asked law officers to look if there is a way of reversing that move. Jersey's government has announced the final phase of its COVID de-escalation measures. From next month, the government will no longer supply free lateral flow tests or advise islanders to stay at home for 5 days if they have COVID. The government says it marks the end of their emergency response to the pandemic. Guernsey's prison has made improvements to its mental health provision, according to its governor. A significant gap in mental health support had been identified in the latest annual report. The prison governor, John de Carteret, says they now have a dedicated mental health nurse following a review.
We've got qualified mental health nurses now within their prison healthcare team, and certainly I've seen an increase in mental health provision for prisoners. We've been very successful recently with referrals to mental health services. So I think from where we were to where we are now, I've seen an improvement, definitely.
Now a look at some of the other stories making the news today. There's another outbreak of bird flu in Jersey. Vets say poultry owners within 3 kilometres of where the cases were found in St Martin must keep their birds indoors. It's the first time restrictions have been in place since last October. Health bosses in Jersey want to change the way people who abuse drugs and alcohol are treated. They describe it as a change in direction. In their new 10-year plan, they want to prevent more young people from drinking too much or taking drugs. Parents of babies who are born prematurely or need extra care will soon be able to get more support from the states. It's to make sure families can afford to take time off work without worrying about money. Staff, patients and visitors going to Guernsey's hospital have been asked by the states to consider alternatives to driving during a road closure. Rue Rondelle will close for 2 months from the junction of Oberland's Road to the emergency department. It means some parking spaces at the hospital will be unavailable. Work on the construction of the first permanent home for the Guernsey Football Association has begun. The site at the end of Victoria Avenue will include a floodlit 3G pitch with 400 seats and covered terraces behind each goal, a grass pitch for 9 A-side matches and training, and will be available to all members of the local footballing community. The project is expected to cost about £10 million and is being funded with money from the Premier League, the FA, the UK Government's Football Foundation and private donations.
Guernsey football has never had its own home. We've existed since 1893 and moving forward to be able to deliver the outcomes that we want for football and grow the sport in the island, having our own dedicated facility is going to be a game changer.
Jersey's men's cricketers have beaten Austria in qualifying for the T20 World Cup. It was the team's first match in their bid to make to the World Cup next year. Tomorrow, Jersey's cricketers face host Scotland in the week-long tournament. Now, for many parents, it's a pleasure to see their children reading books that were favourites when they were young. But one Jersey father who grew up reading Roy of the Rovers football comics couldn't find anything similar for his footy-loving son. So he literally took matters into his own hands and wrote a book himself.
It's primarily to write a story for my son Harvey. I noticed there was a gap in the market. There wasn't a story of that genre, so I just thought, why not? I'll have a go. I really enjoyed writing it. I honestly didn't think it would get this far. I didn't think I'd find someone to publish it, but I did, so it feels great.
Obviously he likes football, just like me. He wears number 16 like I do when I play for St Wands, and he wears yellow and blue like my St Wands team as well.
The feedback I've had has been absolutely amazing. Obviously everyone in my family has been super helpful and supportive, and they're right behind me all the way. Harvey's really enjoyed the story. He wants to know what happened in the next one straight away. That was the first thing he said when he finished reading it. But wider friends and family and colleagues, they've all been so helpful and supportive. It's been great. So I've got to get on with the next one.
And finally, around 500 years ago, the first ship to sail right around the world was a Spanish ship called the Victoria. And over the weekend, a replica of this boat called the Neo Victoria will be docked on the Albert Pier in Jersey. And you can step on board to have a look around where the crew will be on hand to guide you through the ship's history. Emma Jane Blackman went to find out more about this floating museum.
In the 16th century, a ship just like this set sail around the world. A crew of around 50 people would have guided her with no engine and no navigational aids.
As you can see, the ship is not really that big, and to imagine that a group of men, like really brave men, adventure in the oceans without knowing what they were going to find, is very, very amazing. And even for us today, every time we sail, we can just imagine a little bit of what they might have been thinking when they were doing these exploring trips.
A replica of the now Victoria is in Jersey over the weekend and is open for explorers of all ages to learn more about her.
Everything, all the maneuvers and everything that we have on the ship is done by hand, like it was before. So even today we steer the ship with the pinzote, and well, yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's also very, very nice, very interesting.
Whilst this is a replica using copies of all the traditional features, this ship also followed the original path around the world, which took 2 years to complete.
People, normally when they come visit, they are always very surprised that something so small like this one, like this ship right here, did the tour of the world. And also the fact that it's all black. The reason is because the original one used to have some sort of petrol or some product on it to preserve the wood. And so we have it the same color. Once you see the ship with all the sails open, it's absolutely beautiful.
And you might just get a chance to catch the gleaming white sails as she leaves the island Sunday night. Emma Jane Blackman, BBC Channel Islands News, Jersey.
And here's the weather now with Bea Tucker. Hi.